Hey, how's it going? Good. So just get up there and start. Valleys. Hey, how's it going? All right, well, we might as well get started. For those who don't know me, I'm John Tinkham, a member of the church here. I teach history at Cromwell High School, so I'm really into history bits a little bit. So recently I did a presentation that Cromwell Historical Society asked me to look into the history of food in Connecticut. So I put together some slides and some histories. You'll find the presentation, the first part mostly about foods that were founded in Connecticut, and the second half is all about restaurants you may have eaten at that still exist and may be out of business by now. We'll give you a little history of how they came about and things like that. Anybody has anything to add or say during it, feel free to speak up. It's all interactive here. This is really the first slider isn't really part of the presentation. Go back one. There's Valleys, right? So everybody knows where Valleys was? Whereabouts was it? Airport Road, Brainerd Road. You know when it closed? Closed at the end of 91. Go to the next slide, Paul. Replaced the chowder pot was there, right? That just closed. Here's your quiz before we start. For a year and a half between Valleys and the chowder pot, what was it? What? Yeah, same place. But there was one place that was there for a year and a half in between. Sun? Hilltop Steakhouse. Very good, Ernie. Hilltop Steakhouse is there for a year and a half before it became the chowder pot. Chowder pot is not close too. But anyway, that's kind of what we're going to be doing later in the show. To start out with, before we get to food, we're going to start with our first slide, and it's about the first cookbook ever in North American colonies. Go ahead, Paul. It was published, as you can see, in Hartford, Connecticut. 1796, American Cookery by Amelia Simmons. She was an orphan, and she was the one that actually introduced cornmeal into cookbooks in America, and molasses also. Before, her cookbook was just copies of what was in England. She also told us how to use pearl ash as a leavener so that we could go ahead and make quick breads without the yeast and the eggs. And that's what a lot of colonial Americans lived on. All right, you can go ahead, Paul. That's a later edition published in New York. Just to tell you something about it is puff pastries. You got the fish, poultry, everything. Now, before we go on, here's the next quiz. It was 48 pages long and there were no pictures, but it had one specialty. What do you think the specialty was in the first cookbook in America? What is it? Cake? Indian pudding? Go ahead, Paul, you can go ahead. Forward, not backwards. Turtle. First specialty was turtle. Good stuff, very delicious. And they used, obviously, the shell for containers to eat their soup with their water, collect water, and this and that. So, Amelia Simmons explains it all. All right, Paul. All right, the first big industry in Connecticut, Peter Paul. So we have Peter Halogen, early 1900s. He was an Armenian immigrant. He worked in the rubber factories in Naugatuck, Connecticut. He had a side hustle with his daughters. They went to the commuter train lots, and he sold chocolate and fruit to the commuters. That was going so well, he bought a candy shop on Water Street in Naugatuck. World War I happens. American government requests chocolate from everybody to be sent to the troops because it's a little treat and it also gives them energy. When World War I ends, the soldiers all come home. they have a demand for chocolate, and the chocolate wars in America start. Between the world wars, there were 6,000 companies in America making chocolate. Today, there's 301. And so Peter Halligan was doing really good in his chocolate business. He was mad at everybody confusing his name, like I'm probably butchering it, so he changed his last name to Paul. And in 1921, he introduced, if I choose the right one, he introduces the Mounds Bar into the market to compete against O. Henry and the Baby Ruth. Now in the Mounds Bar, you have your juicy Filipino coconut center and 2 layers of dark bittersweet chocolate. Yummy, yummy. Anybody wants this after the show, it's all yours, so I don't eat coconut. But anyway, it was so popular by the early 1930s, Halligan, or now Paul, was the largest importer of coconuts in the entire world. 20% of all coconuts coming to America went to Naugatuck, Connecticut. He was shipping out 100,000 pounds of candy a day. Then World War II comes, and what do you think happened right at the very first year of World War II to mess his life up? Huh? Not the workers. Where did he get, where was the juicy center from? It's from the Philippines. The Japanese took over the Philippines the first year of the war. He lost his supply. So he went and he built what he called his flea fleet, F-L-E-A, and he said, the Japanese are not going to waste their ammunition on my little boats. And he was right. So he was able to get his coconuts still out of the Philippines. He even thought of a way to use the shells in gas masks and high-end explosives. Well, due to rationing, his candy business took a huge hit, but he was still able to make the Mounds Bar. He was selling 5 million Mounds Bars a month to the military. And when World War II ends, we have another big surge from the troops for chocolate. That's when he introduces his next bar, the Almond Joy. This still has the coconut Filipino center. Now it has a double layer of toasted almonds and milk chocolate on the outside. Another big hit. He becomes the first candy manufacturer to do jingles on television, color TV. Remember this jingle? Somebody's got to remember the jingle. Sometimes, whatever it's that, sometimes you feel like a nut, sometimes you don't. That's the good, yeah, there you go. Woo. So that's the Peter Paul jingle. You can go to the next one, Paul. Or 2007, by the way, Hershey bought him out, or Hershey moved the plant down to Virginia. The next thing we're going to talk about is that yellow case there, the lollipops. Bradley Smith Company in New Haven, 1908, they invented the lollipop as we know it. George Smith was impressed and intrigued by chocolate people putting their chocolate on a stick. And people were saying, you know what, it doesn't melt and get in my hands. So he went to his partner there, Andrew Bradley, and says, why don't we do that with some of our candy? So they made ribbon candy, this big long line of ribbon candy. They went down, snipped a piece off, still hot, grabbed some gloves, they molded it into a ball, they stuck a stick in it. They did an experiment in New Haven, took off like crazy. Everybody said, this is beautiful, I have candy now, I can have ribbon candy on a stick and my hands don't get sticky. It's free. So they're going to market it. Now he's going to figure out what are we going to call it. So he calls it the lollipop. Where does the name lollipop come from? His daughter, no. His favorite racehorse, the lollipop. As you notice, in the early 1900s, we'll see with some others, horse racing is a big thing in America. So his favorite racehorse was called Lollipop, so he names it the lollipop. They give him a big hassle about getting it patented. You go to the next slide, Paul. There's his place in New Haven, the Bradley Smith Company. They gave him a hard time getting it patented because they said that a lollipop was a meat on a stick back in the Civil War. So it took 25 years to get patented, and by the time he did, he was making 750 lollipops a minute and shipping them around the world in those tin containers. All right, you go to the next one. So that's your lollipops. All right, Paul. Go to what's next. Oh, Louis' Lunch. So, according to the Library of Congress, the first hamburger in America was made by Louis Laston at Louis' Lunch in the year 1900. A man came in, he wanted something good and fast. So Louis took scraps from 5 blended steaks. He put it together in a patty. You can go to the next one. That's how Louis' Lunch looked like back in the day. You go to the next one. He put it in the vertical ovens to cook it. Remember those old toasters? Love those toasters. And then you remember those at diners all the time. No, not yet. Go back. Go back. So they had the toaster in the toast there. So he took the hamburger patty, he put it in the toast, he put on it a slice of onion, tomato, and cheese. That's it. If you go to Louis Lunch in New Haven today, they're still there. They still make hamburgers, and they still, no ketchup, no mustard, no pickle relish, no mayonnaise. You want a real hamburger? Onion, tomato, cheese. That's it. All right, so go ahead, Paul, you go to the next one. So now they had to come up with our healthy alternative, right? Everyone thinks steamed is much healthier than frying, right, or whatever. So the steamed cheeseburger came into being at a place called Jack's in Middletown in the 1920s. You can go ahead. There's the match, like 434 Main Street, Middletown is where Jack's Lunch used to be. You can go ahead to the next one. And there's a picture of Jack's Lunch right there. What he did was he made the hamburger, he put it on what he called a drying rack. So all the quote-unquote bad greases would fall off. And then he'd pour on top of it 2 ounces of steamed cheddar cheese. Because we all know, again, steamed is healthier than frying. And he sold it as an alternative, a healthy alternative. That caught on very fast. What's the name of the place in Connecticut we all know of that sells steamed cheddar burgers still today? Ted's. Ted's, very good. Go ahead, you go to the next one. Go ahead. Ted's, it's in Meriden, the flagship. They opened in 1959. They branched out. There was one in Cromwell for a while. You can keep going. That's what the Ted's looks like on the inside if you've never been. So steamed burger came along first in Connecticut as a healthy alternative to a hamburger. Anybody here had a steamed cheeseburger? They're good. I thought they're healthy alternative, but they're good. All right, you go ahead. All right. According to the Encyclopedia of Food and Drink, the first hot lobster roll in America, served at Perry's in Milford, 1927. A lady came in, she said, I want some lobster off the shell. I don't want to mess around with that nutcracker and pierce them this way and that way, and just stick it on a bun for me. So that's what they did. They broke the lobster off, took it out of the shell for her, put it in a roll, and poured some butter on top. Massachusetts, Maine, they had cold lobster rolls before this. But they put the mayonnaise sometimes in there and the celery and mix it up. There's nothing in an official Connecticut hot lobster roll except lobster, a little bit of lemon juice. That's it. So it started at Perry's, and it was very, very popular. All right, you can go ahead. Oh, our friends Pepperidge Farms. There's a little basket out there in the narthex, whatever, with the Pepperidge Farms if you want one. But I love looking at all the little things, makes me hungry. All right, you can go to the next one if you want. Leave it there for a second. So on July 4th, what a nice date, huh? July 4th, 1947, Margaret Rushkin opens Pepperidge Farms in Norwalk, Connecticut. She named it Pepperidge Farms after her estate in Fairfield, which was named after the Pepperidge tree. 10 years earlier, in 1937, her son Mark had many, many food allergies, so she had to start making specialty breads for him. Her husband at the time worked in New York City, and so he started taking them on the train with him and selling them in New York, all the specialty stores. And so it caught on pretty quickly. When World War I came around, there was rationing, and it messed up her bread making. But she made her product line bigger and started making crackers, cookies. She started making frozen pastries. You can go ahead, Paul. That's the picture of her right there when selling her thing at the old wares. Go ahead. She had the assembly line kneading the bread in Norwalk, Connecticut, Downington, Pennsylvania. That's on Route 30, the Lincoln Highway, right outside of Philadelphia. And that's where all the Pepperidge Farms products are made. You've had those probably in your life. Keep going. How do you not like a mint Milano? Those are like perfect. That's why I put them on there. They were like perfect things. Right, there's no icing needed. You still need icing to me, but that's all right. Keep going. I like icing on my cake. I could eat a ham and cheese sandwich every day for lunch if someone let me. So we could have, you do that forever, and it would be really good. This guy right here, I am told by people in Cromwell, I have no idea if this is true or not, that he's lived and came from New Britain. No idea if that's true, but that's what they told me. So I'm not going to say it's true or not, but you're fast up there. That's all right. It's all right. Go ahead to the next one. So what she did in 1961, she sold Pepperidge Farm to the Campbell Soup Company. And 2 years later, in 1963, she published the Pepperidge Farm Cookbook. It was the first cookbook to break into the New York Times bestseller list. Does anybody have that cookbook? All right, you can go to the next one. There's a page from that. Stuffing, asparagus and cheese stuffings. I don't know if I don't like that anyway, but that was a very popular and broke into the bestseller list for a lot of times. What's our Connecticut state fish? There's right there. Shad, right? So that, anybody know where that is? It's still there now. Yeah. I just went by it the other day. It's the old Route 9A or 154, the old Saybrook Road. If you got, before Route 9 was built, that was the road to the beach. Huh? Looks exactly the same right now. I don't think it's open. It says closed on there, but their season only ran from April to June, because that's when the shad used to run by the tens of thousands in the Connecticut River and other rivers. It was a huge thing in the 1800s. The farmers in Haddam used to, for 2 weeks, stop their planting and would go fishing. Because with the shad, you ship them all around the world. You know allowed them to be shipped all around the world? Newington, because they made the barrel staves, right? At the bottom of Mill Pond Falls in the factory there. And that's what they shipped them all around the world to feed everybody. Now, shad is a very, very oily fish. It's like bluefish. It's terrible. It also happens to have 1,000 bones per fish. It's very difficult to eat. So the way to eat shad is called planking. You take some buttered boards, you nail the shad to it, and you suspend it over the coals of the fire for a little while while it cooks. There's still shad derbies. Windsor had one forever. There's one in Muda still. But that used to be the Connecticut River was known for its boat making, trade, and shad by the tens of thousands. The Native Americans used to trap them down at Smith Cove and Old Saybrook every year, too, to supply themselves. All right, Paul, we can go on. What's next? Oh, the Union Brew. Hartford, 1900. 180 saloons and taverns selling alcohol. Twice the number of churches and temperance societies trying to shut them down. Now, Hartford Brew was supplied by 4 main breweries, 4 big breweries in Hartford. Anybody can name any of the 4? Because some of you might have worked at one of the companies. It's an offshoot of a very famous Hartford company. No, close though. There you go, Etna. The Etna Brewing Company. You know, it gets itself in everything. I love this thing down here at the bottom. Pure ice from distilled water. Now, you can tell me if this is true or false, because I said this before in Cromwell, no one believed me. Didn't there used to be a jail at Bellevue Square in Hartford? Does anybody remember that? That's just me making that up. I thought there was a jail on Bellevue Street in Hartford. The Hartford jail before they made the new police station. Okay, maybe not. We'll see. But anyway, that's the Etna Brewing Company. They went out on strike. This was the year of unions, progressive era, and guess what they wanted? They wanted to have an 8-hour workday, 6 days a week, but they wanted an 8-hour workday. And they also wanted every employee to be hired through the union hall. Kind of like what happens with union stay in a lot of places. But the management wouldn't budge, so the brewer people went on strike. 400 barrels a week, down to 0 into Hartford. It was a big problem. So finally, management caved, and the brewers got their 8-hour workday. They got to hire everybody from Union Hall, and every couple hours, they got a 5-minute break to drink a beer. All kinds of it. Now, before we go on, all of a sudden, you have no alcohol for a week. So somebody's got to drink something at night, right? So that's how these offshoots of these things happen. So this drink came to Hartford and became a bestseller during this strike weeks. You can put it on there. Ginger ale. That's how ginger ale got its foothold in Connecticut, of all places. During the brewers' strike and the people who couldn't drink alcohol, they do it. I love the way they said it. It's invariable choice of cultured society. I guess we're all cultured here. Distinguished in character. But again, strike happens, and that's the offshoot of something good that came out of it. What are those? Cider presses, right? 1820. There were 213 cider presses in Hartford County alone. Why? Because the water was no good to drink. Here, right across the street, where Starbucks all is, remember that was the Wells Orchard, the biggest orchard in all of Newington. a huge apple orchard. And they made hard cider just like these people are making hard cider then. Why? Because the water wasn't safe. In the mid-1700s, the average colonial, he drank about 36 gallons of hard cider and about 4 gallons of hard alcohol. In Connecticut, they used to sweeten their cider with 2 things. What do they sweeten it with? Maple syrup is one, honey's the other one. And in Connecticut, they added a 3rd ingredient, which I never heard of in cider. They don't do it anymore that I know of. Not nutmeg, but good guess. Raisins. So, but they don't use those anymore. Of course, in hard cider, they have to put alcohol in there. It's about 6 to 13% alcohol because the alcohol kills the bacteria. We have a great number of chilling hours between chilling days, I should say, between 32 and 45 degrees. All right, you can go ahead. Oh, so I had to do an orchard, right? So I chose Lyman Orchards. It's a big orchard. Anybody been to Lyman's? We've all been to Lyman's, you know the place? All right. So, 1741, Hope and John Lyman. They bought 2 parcels of land in what was then the southwest corner of Middletown. They had alfalfa and they had hay, they had farm animals. But for the next 100 years or so, the Lymans would be known for abolitionists. They owned, then they didn't own, but they orchestrated the entire network of the Underground Railroad in Connecticut. They were huge abolitionists. Their son, the grandson came along in 1866. You can go ahead, Paul. David Lyman, and he built the house that's still there today next to the Lymans. If you go to Lymans, you see that house. David, one of the things he did, besides making Middlefield a town, breaking off from Middletown, he was the first president of the Air Railroad, which went from New Haven to Willimantic and eventually to Boston. He wanted to sell crops, you know, along the route there. I've never seen this before until I was doing this project. You can go to the next one. But that's the Lyman Viaduct in Connecticut. It goes over Nickerson Creek, which is like on the East Hampton-Colchester border. Today, that is filled in with sand on both sides of it. You can walk across it. It's on the air. There's a bicycle route there now. You can take a bike across it, a long way. But that's the kind of production that David Lyman orchestrated in 1866. That railroad opened in 1873. Yeah, Airline Trail today. You can take your bike on it. So Charles Lyman comes along in 1890, and Charles Lyman, he triples the size of the farm from 500 acres to 1,500 acres. He makes room for one special crop. What do you think that crop was? It's not apples. Come on. That would have been too easy if it was apples. Huh? Tobacco? Peaches. Melanie, you knew that. History question. Oh, Paul said that. All right. I was wondering. You never answer any history stuff. You go to the next one. The Alberta peach. Georgia, #1 peach producer in America. Back in the late 1800s, early part of the 1900s, Connecticut was #2. The Lymans went to Georgia, brought those back. And orchards all across Connecticut adopted the peaches. Then, 1917, they had a 4-foot deep freeze. It wiped out almost all the peach crop in Connecticut, just like last year. And so farms had to give up on the peaches. So they switched to what? Now you get the answer is apples. You go to the next one. Apples are much healthier. They stand the cold a lot better. So that's when Lymans went into their big apple business. By 1960, the apple business was so big for them, they gave up all their farm animals. What do you think they did with the pasture land? You all know this too. Golf courses. They changed made their pasture land into golf courses. You go to the next one. 1972, they opened up their apple barrel store, which is still there today. It's a lot bigger today than it was. You go to the next one. In 96, they did the pies for fundraising, all made by hand. Still today, every Lyman's pie is made by hand. They said the first reason they built them was for school fundraisers. I'm sure they made some money off of them too. And then in the early 2000s, they started with the corn maze and the sunflower maze. And for that, they donate almost all the proceeds to charity, usually the Connecticut Children's Hospital. So that's the story of Lyman's. They've been around, what, 283 years? Is that the math? 281, 283? All right, you can go ahead. Oh, the Connecticut Copperthite Pie Company. This guy I think was a smart guy. Henry Copperthite, he's born in Antigua, West Indies in 1847. His family were indentured servants. When they paid off their debt, they moved to Meriden, Connecticut and settled there. At the very end of the Civil War, he drove a wagon for the North. After the war, he went to New Haven, and he started working for pie bakers. For 20 years, he went around delivering pies to all these places. And he learned how to make pies, the ingredients you needed, how much it cost, how do you distribute them, how do you market them. He was a pie expert. So, kind of ahead of me there, Paul, but that's all right. Hold up a second. So, in 1885, he moves to the Georgetown section of Washington, D.C. He and his wife, a horse and a wagon, and $3.50. 2 years later, he and they get an investor named Smith to help him, and they opened the Carpethite Pie Baking Company, later to become the Connecticut Pie Baking Company. Go ahead, Paul. They're going to make pies the Connecticut way. It's pie time all the time when there are Connecticut pies, just like they make them in the Nutmeg State. 29 kinds of pie. He starts selling them on Embassy Row, at the White House, the Capitol, Legislative Office Building. In 10 years, he's a millionaire. He has so much money, you can go to the next one. He comes back to Connecticut, he buys the place he used to drive a wagon for, he buys it out, and he puts the Connecticut Pie Company branch in there. Very successful. In the early 1900s, you'll see, go to the next one. He really loves his racehorses, the trotters, and he liked the newfangled airplanes. He died in 1925. His heirs sold the company in 1954 to the Ward Baking Company. Anybody know who the Ward Baking Company became? Huh? Hostess. Ward Baking Company became Hostess. All right, now we'll go to the more famous pie company in Connecticut you all know about, the Frisbee Pie Company out of Bridgeport. One of their big clients was Middlebury College up in Vermont. The people from Whammo used to come down there to see their little saucers. Go ahead, you can go to the next one. And they're watching one day when they finished eating their pies, they would turn them upside down and they'd throw them across the quad at each other. It went from Middlebury College down to Yale, all the way out to California. And so the people said there, you know what? We're going to drop the I and the S and we'll add an E. Go to the next one. And that's where your Frisbees come from the Frisbee Pie Company. That company went out of business in 1958. But that's how Connecticut has to do with the invention of the Frisbee. It's a good thing. All right, Paul. Edible arrangements. Anybody ever had an edible arrangement? Tariq Farid, he was 11 years old when he came over from Pakistan. In 1999, he starts edible arrangements. His two passions in life, flowers, fruit. So he puts them all together in a basket. He has what's called a wow guarantee. He says if you get your arrangement and don't say wow, you can ask for your money back. And he says as of last year, nobody's ever asked for their money back. He has over 60 locations in Connecticut. All right, you go ahead. That's what it looks like. Good stuff. I don't know about that green stuff, but the other stuff looks pretty good. I don't know about the kiwi. I don't know. There. Yeah. All right, you can go ahead. I've never heard of this stuff. Maybe some of you have. Bare Naked Granola. Kelly Flatley and Beverly Sinnott, back in 2002. They come up with this granola. They had a very hard time selling it the first year. They almost gave up. Somebody here on vacation from the West Coast, an exec from Kellogg, they loved it. They distributed it across the country, so much so that in 2007, Kellogg's bought it off for like $1.5 million. Bought that from them. I'd never heard of that. Anybody ever have that? There you go. All right, you go ahead. What's that? Where do we go for Italian ice in Connecticut? Middletown. What's it called? Huh? Yeah, the Vaquitos, whatever. Something like. Go ahead, Paul. Vaquitos. I don't know how to pronounce it. Now that's in Middletown. Where's the other one? You go to the next one. Yeah, down at the shore. Soundview, in Old Lyme. That's the big thing. On our, at the end of the school year in Cromwell, the guy always comes and gives everybody a free Italian ice, all the teachers, for our hard work during the year, I guess. But it's nice of him to do that. All right, Paul, go ahead. Oh, soda. I hate to put a soda in here. So we chose Foxen. Back in 1922, Matteo Nicleria, he buys 2 parcels of land in the Foxton section of East Haven. In that land, there's 2 springs. He says the water is pure and wonderful. He starts bottling it and selling it to his neighbors. They love it. He starts bottling it and selling it to New Haven people. They love it also. This is during Prohibition. So he says, you know what? Maybe I should get into the soda business, since that's the new rage coming across America. So he makes soda. And his first one he makes there on the far right, the lemon lime one, it was an instant hit. And he always claimed it was because of his water. Now other people claim it's because he uses 100% pure cane sugar instead of the corn syrup that Coke and Pepsi use. But anyway, Frank Pepe went to him and asked if he could sell Foxton in his restaurants. That caught on with all the pizza restaurants in New Haven. So if you go to Pepe's today in New Haven, they just still Foxton. We went to Pepe's about a month or 2 ago in Elmwood, and I had my favorite one, the one in the middle there. You can go to the next one. Is his #1 seller is birch beer, white birch beer. Love that. Don't get it very often. I love white birch beer. You go to the next one. Iron Brew, you know, just for the semantics of it. He still sells about 1,100 cases a day he ships out on East Haven, so they're doing pretty well. All right, Paul. Oldest diner, that's a Pullman-style diner, train car in Connecticut. Anybody know where it is? Opened in 1928. I'll give you a hint, it's on Route 4. Very good, whoever said Torrington. Route 4 in Torrington. I haven't been there in 5 or 6 years. I don't know if it's still there or not. It used to be there forever. And I've stopped there once with my father when he used to do, minister out like in West Cornwall. We'd stop there on Sunday mornings on the way back or whatever. But that's the others. You can go to the next one. That's the ultimate life right there of a diner person. You sit on the stools, you watch them make the eggs or the burger in front of you, and you got to stare at those desserts in that glass window right there, those pieces of pie. Could do that all day. I love going to diners just because of that glass encased dessert thing. Because it's fun talking to the people when you're sitting at the counters. You can go to the next one. The Olympia, you all know the Olympia. That was built in the 1930s, was dropped off on the Berlin Turnpike in 1954, reassembled there. And that's had a rich history in this town. You go to the next one, we're just buzzing through the diners. Anybody ever eat at the End of Diner? Yeah, right? You know what it changed its name to? You go to the next one. Hog River Grill. Where was it? I don't know, I never ate there. See, when I do these, you're supposed to tell me where it is. I don't know. I get to ask the questions. I don't know. Where was the Hog River Grill? I don't know. And the diner, I always assumed it was right next to Etna. Was it Farmington Avenue right next to Etna, right? I would think. Okay, there you go. Right by the Mark Twain House, Farmington Avenue. That's where I think it would be, but I never really know. I've never really seen it. I don't want to make up any stories. O'Rourke's, which is just closing, that's where you always see all the politicians hang out. When Senator Blumenthal or Murphy want to talk to the blue-collar people of Connecticut, they always get photographed at the O'Rourke Diner in Milltown. That was built and started up in '41. Yankee Magazine said it was the top 10 place to eat in Connecticut. They were going to close, yeah. The guy was thinking about closing. They have new ownership. They had a fire like in 2007 or 8 or something. That closed for a while. They reopened for a little bit. All right, you go on. We're done with that. Oh, let's talk about Frank Pepe. 1910 New Haven. New Haven, Connecticut. Per capita, per person, they had the largest number of Italians in the entire United States. In sheer numbers, they were 9th overall. Over 1/3 of their population was Italian. And they brought with them their quick breads, their flatbreads, and their coal-burning wood-fired ovens. Frank Pepe came there in 1920. He apprenticed and worked at different pizza places. Then, as the sign says, in 1925, he established his own place. You can go to the next one. He opens his own place on Worcester Street, and he starts selling, getting a cart, and he wheels his pizzas around to the neighborhoods and to the food markets and to the businesses. And he's so successful, you go to the next one, that in 1930, he and his wife Philomena they're able to have a sit-down restaurant. They're doing very well for themselves. Then in 1933, something happens in America, which is the really boon to his business. It made him so much money that he was able to build the biggest pizza oven in the world. Anybody know what that is? While I get a drink, you can think about it. 1933, America. An event happened that was a boon to not only him, but every pizza maker in Connecticut. I'll give you a hint. Who was the new president? FDR. What was one of his biggest campaign promises? What? Roads, not roads. Not a chicken. Well, that was one of it. That's not what this is about. He wanted to make Americans happy again. How does he make us happy again during a depression? Oh, you're flunking history. What? There you go. Prohibition, repeal of prohibition, December of 1933. So every bar, tavern, saloon opens, and what do you have to have with your beer at midnight and 2, 3 in the morning? Is pizza. And so the pizza business took off. He like quadrupled his profits in number of pizzas, and he built what he calls the biggest at the time, biggest pizza oven in the world, all based on this prohibition ending, because late night pizza is the thing. All right, go ahead. That's how Pepe looks today, Frank Pepe's. He made the New Haven pizza. That's the thin, thin crust, charred crust. Very light on the sauces and seasonings. Go ahead. That's what it looks like on the inside if you've never been. Hold on there for a second, Paul. What was his #1 bestseller? Tomato pie. I shouldn't say #1 bestseller. The one he won all the awards for. I don't know if he sells the most of it. Not pepperoni. Eggplant. You eggplant? Oh, white clam. Yeah, white clam is correct. White clam. Go ahead, Paul. Eggplant on a pizza, that would kill me. Go ahead. That's a white clam pizza. All the clams are from Long Island Sound. I love clams and steamers. I do not like white clam pizza. I tried it. I don't like it. I don't know why, but not a fan. When I go to Pepe's, I get sweet Italian sausage and roasted red peppers. That's it. I like that a lot. With my white birch beer, I'm happy. Yeah. All right, go ahead. You can keep going. That's Sally's Pizza. What's next? Keep going. Oh. Brown and Thompson Company. It opened in the 1840s. It was built by the Cheney brothers of Manchester. How did the Cheneys get all their money? Silk. Very good. They were the silk magnates of Connecticut. And so that's why Cheney Tech's over there now, and Cheney Hall and all in Manchester. Cheney's was all about silk in Manchester. All right, you can go to the next one. In 1876, they opened a restaurant in the building, and it's also a department store, one of the bigger department stores in Hartford. If you can't read it, it says fire, smoke, and water sale. So it's a big sale. You see it's got a lot of traction, a lot of customers going to it. All right, you keep going. Small picture, but I love the picture because it has all the horse and buggies backed in the wagons. And in the background, there is the electric trolley coming down the middle. It's like the transformation of horsepower to electricity. This is the building, Brown and Thompson. Now, it used to be a big watering hole after work in the 1970s, 80s. Used to have a big bear in the lobby, antique sculling oars. There used to be a big bell that used to ring when you get a tip. That red canopy or whatever on the right, that is for City Steam that just closed recently, very recently. That was a brewer that went there. Now, G. Fox is there. What other department store was next to G. Fox? Very good. Go to the next one. Sage Allen. Does anybody, now I don't remember this. This slide is here because my sister Nancy told me to put it here. She said you can't go shopping at G. Fox and Sage Allen back when she used to in the 70s, she took the bus from Newington, without going, there was a diner or something inside Sage Allen. No idea. I never was in there. But she said, if you tell them about the diner or restaurant in Sage Allen, they'll all know what I'm talking about. I don't know. My grandmother was born in 1889, I know that. Anybody remember the Honest Oyster House? Central Row, right next to Old State House. Opened in 1845. Lobster dinners. Go to the next one, Paul. This right here, the guy used to stood there and shucked the oysters. feed them to you on the half shell. But that was that was Hartford's most prestigious seafood restaurant for many, many years. Anybody remember what was right next door to there? Right next to the old State House on Central Row? Who? Marble Pillar. Very good. The Marble Pillar is right over here. It says Marble Pillar. It's hard to read. Go to the next one. The Marble Pillar, German-American food tradition since 1860. So the bus, if you took the bus from Newington where I lived on Mountain View Drive, so the bus would come down Main Street, and it dropped you off at Central Row right next to the Marble Pillar. So again, my sisters told me they always ate there. I never ate there, but whatever. So that's the Marble Pillar. And again, when I did this in Cromwell, they all wondered why I didn't have it in there, so it's added because of the Cromwell people that yelled at me for not having it in there. I could not find a picture of this other place. They said there was a place called Hobnob on Constitution Plaza. Never heard of it, never saw a picture of it, nothing. But. All right, keep going, Paul. Anybody ever eat at the Southern Plantation? You sure? I bet somebody here must have eaten there. On Franklin Avenue in Hartford. Go to the next one, Paul. That ring a bell or anything yet? No fancy diners in here? Come on. What? It's Carbone's. Very good. You win the prize. Keep going. Louis Carnesecchi. Keep going. I don't know why that's in there. It's the bar in there. Keep going. It's Carbone's. It opened in 1938, the year of the hurricane. And the reason they called it Southern Plantation, an Italian name in Hartford, 1938, would have insinuated you were in the mafia, and no one would have done business with you. So they called themselves the Southern Plantation. Why? The southern part of Hartford, and the original food they sold was plantation food. Go to the next slide. Because they were right next to Buckley Stadium, home of the Boston Braves minor league team, the Hartford Chiefs, and the Negro League entry, the Hartford Indians. So people would go to the ballpark, then they would go next door to Southern Plantation and have fried chicken and spaghetti. Those were the two specialties when they opened. Down the road in 1960, it became like a very formal dining experience. Women could not wear pants there until 1970. Men had to wear a sport coat and a tie. They brought everything to the table in pans and they flamed it right in front of you. They made the salad right in front of you. I don't know if you know this. Go back, Paul. That's the next one. We're not there yet. So, 1937, they passed a law in Connecticut. Women could not stand at a bar or sit at a bar and receive alcohol until 1970. From 37 to 70. Actually, it changed in 60. You could sit at a table at a bar and get served. You couldn't stand at the bar until 1970 to be served. Very formal dining and formal everything there. By the mid-90s, 80s and 90s, that was the power broker place to go in Hartford to make business deals. They became famous for the 2, 3, 4, 5 martini lunches with their clients. Then they'd stay there for dinner, and after dinner, what was in Hartford? They'd go to the Whalers, the Celtics. What else happened? What came to Hartford every year that for years everybody used to go watch? The circus was there. There was a Frank Marietta, something like that, auto show. But anyway, that turned out to be 40% of their business in 1993 was on the corporate credit card. But if you lived in Connecticut in 1993, you know they redid the tax code, gave us an income tax, all that. So they could no longer write off all these martini lunches. They lost 40% of their business. That was their first whammy. Second whammy, the Whalers left. Anybody guess what the third whammy is? Not that you would know this, but you all know the answer, but there's no reason why you should know the answer. What else do you think opened around this time in Connecticut that would take business people away? What? The casinos, very good. The casinos, so the casinos open too. So Carbone's now is spattered around different suburban towns. There's one over there, in Rocky Hill. But that's the history of Carbone. Started out as Southern Plantation, and that. Go to the next one. I know nothing about this place. It's right next to Carbone's. It's called the Lincoln Dairy. I just like Abraham Lincoln. I remember as a kid, if you drove down Main Street all the way to New Britain Avenue, right across that intersection, there was a Lincoln Dairy, right? You get an ice cream cone. You go to the next one, Lincoln Dairy. So How could you not get a milk bottle and eggs that had Abe Lincoln's face on them? If I ever knew that existed when I was a kid, I would have made my mother buy milk bottles with Abe Lincoln on them.
The original legendary was on Ward Place.
Ward Place, okay. You have a question? Oh, I got you. No, I don't need these. Hurry up, she says. Get done. All right, go ahead. All right, Andrew Peterson. He owns all these milk routes in West Hartford and Hartford. He says, you know what, I get all this milk, I'm going to try my hand at ice cream. Eventually, it's so good, he gets, well, remember what the cartons look like? Orange and brown ice cream. He's #1 milkshake in America one year. He opens 13 restaurants, one right over there, right? Only one exists today, that's still on Park Road in West Hartford. That's his driving down the shore. Anybody ever eat there? Yeah. What's it called now? Hallmark, very good. It used to be Hallmark for years, then it switched to A.C. Peterson for like 11 years, then went back to Hallmark. All right, you can keep going. What else we got up here? We can buzz through this. Yukon Dairy Bar, that's a picture of 57. It opened in 53. In 1991, they were the health department. They couldn't sell butter or milk anymore, or cream cheese, because they had all these health violations. So they just decided we're going to sell ice cream. Last year, they sold about almost 55,000 gallons of ice cream. They have about 250,000 visitors a year there. You can keep going. That's the Benton Museum of Art on the right. It used to be the big dining hall at Yukon back in the 40s, 30s and 40s. I throw that in there because I used to work there when I went to Yukon. All right, keep going. Anybody know where that is? Middletown. Route 17 right on the Middletown-Durham border. 1936 it opened. It was a great place for all the jazz people performing in Middletown and at Wesleyan and places like that. Louis Armstrong, the Dorsey Brothers, Cab Calloway, Al Jolson, the directors Martin Scorsese, and Eleanor Roosevelt all went to the Cypress restaurant. All right, keep going. Yeah, well, the Sliders just closed. It used to be, went to a Sliders and they just changed it to something else. The granddaughter of the Cardis is the original owners of the Cypress Gardens there, whatever, works with me. Blackies, anybody been to Blackies? I've never been. Close. It's in Cheshire, the Cheshire-Waterbury border, right on the road going to Waterbury. It opened in 1925 as a gas station. They started selling hot dogs to get customers. So popular that by 1928, they got rid of the gas and just sold hot dogs. Someplace else around here is very similar to that. Go ahead. Capital Lunch. You all know where that is. Next to Eblin's there, used to be Eblin's. So Capital Lunch started as a shoeshine boys shop, shoeshine shop. And again, they started selling hot dogs to attract customers. And they changed it into an eating place. They have, did anybody know what kind of hot dogs they sell there? Martin Rossi, Greek-style hot dogs. And they grill them. The Ground Round, offshoot from Howard Johnson's, they opened in '69. Remember they had Bingo the Clown? In the 70s, a lot of kids' birthday parties were there. Remember they had the big projector and the whole wall was like the cartoons or the newsreels? And the best part was you could throw your peanut shells on the floor. That's what I loved about that. Take your eat it, throw on the ground. There's your menu, the Ground Round Junior. All right, you've been there? First and last, hold on. All right, that's all right, no, it's okay. So first and last, that opened in the middle of the Depression, 1936. This is what they served you. You got one plate. On it, there was a salad, there was pasta, and a spaghetti or meatball. You could wash it down with a soda or water or beer. They had no wine, they had no alcohol, hard alcohol, because it was in the Depression. Over the years, it became a big place for people to go. There's pictures all over the wall of politicians, celebrities, sports stars. It's called First and Last because the road between the two capitals way back in our history connected New Haven and Hartford. They were both the capital of the Connecticut at one time. They shared the capital. Route 5, which is the Berlin Turnpike, connected the two. And so if you were leaving Hartford, the last tavern was that one. If you're coming into Hartford, it was the first one you hit. So they call themselves First and Last because they're right on the border leaving Hartford. That place, you know where that is? East side. Could almost throw a rock in from here. The Walters started East Side as a grocery store. They sold it to the Blows, and the Walters went on to make Dock and Dine down in Old Saybrook a big place. The Blows made this a big place. You can go to the next one. They made the big Heidelberg dining room. All the beer steins hanging from the ceiling. They had the icy shot tower. They do the beer like that, 32 degrees, perfect temperature for the beer. And go to the next one. What does this guy play and sing to you? Go ahead, let's hear it. Who's going to sing the jingle? Yeah, there you go. Tiki-taki, oi, oi, oi. Yay. So that's, you can go to the next one. That's East Side. We're getting to the end here. Okay, go ahead. Where's that? Lenny and Joe's, very good. That's the Lenny and Joe's by Ham and Acid. Hold on. Lenny and Joe's opened in 1979 in Westbrook. It was a roadside clam shack. It had 4 picnic tables. Last summer on the busy weekends, they served over 10,000 customers. They pride their restaurants on looking like a summer cottage. So when you go in, they have the netting, they have the saltwater taffy, maybe a starfish, this and that. They make their chowder fresh every day. Nothing's pre-cooked is what they preach, et cetera, et cetera. But it's a very popular place. Now they got the carousel going, so it's a very big thing. All right, you go ahead. You can go ahead. And that's Lenny and Joe's. All right, what's next? What's our next one? Oh, this guy. What's that?
Cook's Tavern.
Very good, Mr. Hall, Cook's Tavern. That was built way back in 1789. And John Cook, whatever, bought it in 1795, made it into a tavern for horses, for people, for everybody. It's right off what's called the College Highway. Connects Yale and New Haven to Smith College up in Northampton. It picks up some private schools in Simsbury and Farmington along the way. So it's called the College Highway. It's a very popular place. One of his great-grandsons, or great-great-grandson, opened a restaurant there in 1934, full restaurant. It was so popular that in 1978, when ESPN was founded, their very first television interview and all for ESPN was at Cook's Tavern. In 1979, they sell it to Tim Adams and Jim Welch. They immediately make it a highbrow restaurant. They ordered white tablecloths, highbrow menu, and it went down. In 1981, there was a recession. They almost closed. They were down to only 10 employees. They were in a lot of trouble. In 1988, they changed the name to J. Timothy's. All right? J. Timothy's. And they changed the menu. No more highbrow menu. They got back to like a normal family style thing. In 1989, they have their very first big special. Bucket of wings, Rolling Rock ponies. They sold 15 of them. Now they usually on a Wednesday night sell over 100 of them. And that's the first special there. So they were doing well. You keep that on for a second. Then what happened was 1991 comes, 2 years later. They're very civic-minded. They do a lot in their community. And for their employees, they sponsored a community softball team. On the team, a lot of players. The oldest player, they nicknamed Dirt, like a lot of sports teams nickname the oldest guy on the team Dirt. When the game's over, they go back and have their pizza and wings at J. Timothy's. And old Dirt there, he loves to talk. He tells all the stories of yesteryear, you know, when I was young, and everybody's eating their pizza, or eating their wings and drinking their beer. Finally, it's time he stops talking. And he says to the waitress, you know, these wings, they're stone cold. Go throw them back in the fryer, throw some more sauce on them, and bring them back, and I'll eat them. That's disgusting. He brought them back, he ate them, everybody loved them. And that's what they're called now is what? Dirty wings. So when you go to J. Timothy and you order Dirt wings, they get in the fryer twice, and they get apple-applied sauce twice. And he claims he doesn't charge anything extra for that because of the volume that he sells because of it. That all came from the softball player called Old Dirt. Now they have over 100 employees. They serve over 400 people at once. And this year for the Super Bowl, what was it, about 15 tons of chicken wings they sold? An amazing number. All right, you can go ahead. Where is that? I bet some of you have been there. Griswold Inn in Essex, right? Very good. Essex. So that was built in the 1790s. The British actually took it over as their headquarters in the War of 1812 when they had the big fight. Again, they burned the place down there in Essex, had to fight in the Connecticut River. Today it's known as like the #1 place in the United States where you get all that maritime art. See if I can remember this guy's name. I think his name is Antonio Jacobson. He's like the premier maritime artist in America. A lot of his art is there. Go ahead, you can go to the next one. On all the walls. All right, you can keep going. That's an outside view of it. All right, keep going. Keep going to the next one. Give a little, see if it says what it is there. Remember this place? Yankee Silversmith Inn, opened in the 1950s. In this house that was built in 1862. It used to be a place for parties. Not an individual restaurant so much as a party place. You have these big gatherings. You go ahead to the next one. In 1970, they added this Pullman car. You could dine in that. And that used to be a fancy place. I've personally never eaten there. It no longer exists. Anybody eat there? A lot of you eating there? Yeah, I never was there. That was a big thing, driving by that all the time. I just thought it was cool if you could eat in a railroad car as a kid. I think it's a fun thing to do. Huh?
I think it's Sonic's today.
Oh, Sonic's, yeah, I think you're right, it might be. Where's that? Old Route 9A, Sudbrick Road. It used to be when you went, before there was Route 9, the traffic going to the beach backed up to Middletown, bumper to bumper. Big traffic jam. So a couple fast food places started, sprouting up there in the road. Pilot House opened in 1945, known for their homemade relish. You go ahead, Paul. Go ahead. Same place, Higgy's opened, known for their colorful picnic tables and all their things. They had chili they put on their hot dogs and hamburgers. Go ahead. This place I went to with the Gene Favors. You took me there, first time I was there. Yep. That's in Colchester. Opened in 1920, Harry's. I love their onion rings. Now, we all know about the Catskills in New York State, known as the Jewish Catskills. A lot of the Jewish folks from New York City would vacation in the Catskills. Well, in the mid-1900s, Connecticut had their own Jewish Catskill place that people came to. You know where that was? Where? East Haddam, very good. Colchester, East Haddam, go ahead. You go to the next one. So East Haddam Buddhist Hotel Association, all those resorts, most of them are no longer there. They're like state parks or campground now. You can go to the next one. But very nice resorts. I remember the Frank Davis one off the top of my head. All right, and the Grandview Hotel, that is now no longer there, but it's a campground. But that's why places like Harry's opened, to support this population that would come up in the summer in East Haddam and those places. All right, you go ahead. Abbott's. They opened in 1947. They're just a lobster pound. They opened as a restaurant in 1960. And obviously they've gotten bigger and bigger ever since. What do they call a grinder? Huh? A sub. But why do they call it a grinder? Where's the word grinder come from? You never thought about that? You're eating a grinder? I never knew this word existed either until I saw this, so I don't act like I did. You go to the next one. It's because to eat a grinder, you have to grind your teeth together to get through all the meat at a Franklin giant grinder. So you got to grind your teeth to get through all that. So they call them grinders. I didn't know that either. That's just research find it. No, I didn't make that up. I didn't know that though. When I was researching this place, that's how I found out about it, on their thing. I asked the guy and he told me all about it. Yeah. Here's for all the old local Newington folks here. Dock and Dine was really founded by one guy from Newington, and his company is Newington. I never met the guy, but I played on his Little League team that he sponsored. They had green hats. We had green hats. A tool company. I'm not sure it was. I think it was off of Cedar Street, down like across from Crest Pontiac, that area. Not sure though. Cable Tool, that's what it's, Cable Tool. You remember where Cable Tool used to be? Richard Street, okay, Richard Street. But Mr. Cable, I think his name might have been John, but I'm not sure, but it was Cable. He's the one that started Dock and Dine. And then the Walters, who used to own East Side after selling it, they went down and they really made it the big place that it became for a long time. How are we doing for time, Mel? We done yet or what? Okay, we're almost done. There's only like 3 slides left. This place, the church used to go to. Melanie used to take people here for dinner or lunch once a year. It's go to the next one. It might give you a hint. Where's that, Mel? Yeah, where's that? What lake? What is it? How do you pronounce it? Pokepog. Pokepog, whatever she's saying. That's right. That's in East Hampton at Lake Pokepog, whatever. That lake house, the restaurant's no longer there. But I did through that there because the church used to go there a couple of years. I remember we used to go for, I don't know what the occasion was. And these are old pictures. I don't know if you can even see what that is. That's an amusement park down at the beach in Connecticut. Any clue for anybody? I put this word for one person who's not here. Jim Maroney said this was the only place his family went out to eat when he was a kid. Everybody heard of Jimmy's? West Haven? Jimmy's was right on the beach. And they did this one thing. They sold hot dogs, and they split their hot dogs down the middle. And the reason they split their hot dogs down the middle is because when the conductor came on the trolley, he could jump out and he could put his ketchup and mustard in the slit. It was already split open for him, and then jump back on and keep eating while he worked. They did all for his accommodations. All right, Paul. You can keep going. Rosalier's Frankfurters. 10 million and one satisfied customers. That's on the Celestine Highway. There it is, Saybrook Fish House. I don't know a thing about it, so I don't want to make up a story. I never did these slides before. The end's here. I know what the last one is, though. Shady Glen in Manchester. Has anybody eaten their ice cream? All right, then you're going to explain this ice cream to me. Go to the next one, Paul. What is this like mincemeat? What is that, mince ice cream? Is that what you really eat? And who eats? Is that a thing too? Eggnog ice cream? Really, you like that? How would I ruin my ice cream with eggnog? Oh. Yeah, grape nuts, another story. All right, and the last one is I just threw up there's more instances. That's from my other talk that I did. But that's all I got. Anybody want to say anything, or you can, or? That's all we got. Thanks for coming. She told me to keep it to an hour. That's pretty close to an hour. On the back table, there's stuff from Petridge Farms, I think she put out there, from Peter Paul. Yeah, anybody want these things, take them. I don't need coconut. I'm allergic to it. But really, thanks for coming. It's great to see everybody. That's fun to talk about history.